What a first day at the Madrid Masters. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We'll recap the first day and preview some second round picks. Let's take a look at the draw. Here's a look at Sinner's eighth of the draw. First match we're going to look at is Sinner against Bonzi. And Bonzi able to beat Drogway, and this was a very impressive win for him. No breaks of serve until the very end, where Bonzi was able to get that break and serve out the match. I mean, pretty incredible stuff here from Bonzi. He only faced one break point. He had 9 chances to break Drogway, and Drogway able to hold him off the entire match until the very end. Just a really nice win, and that's got to give you a lot of confidence. We know Bonzi's kind of been back and forth. He looked good getting through qualifying for Indian Wells and playing. I believe he did Miami as well. Yeah, lost in the final round of qualifying to Jodar in Miami. But this has got to give you a little bit of confidence here on the clay, and you'll definitely need some confidence taking on Sinner. Head-to-head here is 3-0 for Sinner, and they did have one tricky match in Indian Wells where we know that Bonzi does play pretty well. Let's go through their 3 matches here. In 2020, they played at the French Open. Sinner was able to win 6-2, 6-4, 6-4 in the second round. Then they played at Indian Wells in 2022. Sinner won 7-6, 3-6, 6-4 in the third round. And then they played in Rotterdam indoor hardcourt, and Sinner was able to win 6-2, 3-6, 6-1. So Bonzi's kind of been a little bit of a thorn in Sinner's side, but this is a much better Jannik Sinner right now than even the Jannik Sinner from 2023. So I don't know if Bonzi is going to be able to put up much resistance here. I am curious to see hours on court. He's at 4.5 hours here. Bonzi coming in, he's 3-2 on the clay, 2-4 last year, 7-10 the year before. Sinner 5-0 on the clay right now, having won Monte Carlo over Carlos Alcaraz, and 11-2 last year, 11-2 the year before. So he's been pretty consistent on the clay, and we've talked about how he's improved his clay game a lot in the last couple of years, getting to the French Open final last year and having match points against Carlos. I think it would really take a very strong effort from Bonzi to even keep this match close. I have heard something that Sinner might be a little bit under the weather, but I don't see that really being an issue here against Bonzi. I'm going to go Sinner to advance in straight sets. Next match is Elmer Moller against Gabriel Diallo. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get eyes on Moller and China, but let me just click on the stats here and kind of see our breakout. So Moller able to get a break in the final game of the first set with China serving to stay in it, not able to hold on there. That was a little bit of a back and forth game. Moller getting a 15-40 lead, China saving a couple of set points, and then Moller getting a break off of the deuce. Then a 7-6 set here where Moller actually had the lead, a 5-3 lead, served for it, got broken, and then China broke Moller and served for the second set and not able to convert there. That's very interesting for him. You know, a lot of pressure there on China, I felt, and we talked about that a little bit. Moller able to come through here. He's got a little bit more of that clay court prowess here. Moller serving at 55% first serves in, 178% of those, 50% won on the second serve. That's pretty good for him. He was 3 of 14 on break points. That's not great, but that at least shows you that he was really putting a lot of pressure on the China serve. Only 32 winners to the 39 winners of China, so that's also very interesting as well. We talked about how China has that big aggressive game and just isn't able to really connect consistently with some of those shots to bother some of the better players, at least coming up now in the ATP Tour level. Now Moller takes on Diallo, and there is no head-to-head between these guys, but Moller does have the better clay court records. He's 5-6 this year on the clay, so not great. 31-17 last year, 52-21 the year before. Diallo, on the other hand, coming in at 1-3 this year on the clay, 8-7 last year, 7-6 the year before. He generally doesn't do too great on the clay. He got a win over Sachko in Munich, but then got rolled by Zverev 6-1, 6-2. Sachko being a qualifier, I believe, in Munich. And I had picked Sachko to get the win there. I thought maybe he was going to be able to pressure Diallo, but he was no match for the power of Diallo. And that's the thing that we're going to have to look out for here against Moller. However, we did see Moller handle the power of China today. So that could be a plus for us there. I just think that Diallo's got a little bit more of a grasp on his game per se. So he's going to be able to find some openings and be able to rope that forehand maybe a little bit stronger than Moller was able to do today. That does worry me, stronger than China was able to do today against Moller. And that does worry me a little bit when you're looking at this. So we got to be careful with that. Like, Diallo can come out and treat Moller the same way that he played Sachko and just kind of rolled him over. Sachko had no answers for the power of Diallo. I got to pick Moller here. It seems like a little bit counterintuitive. Obviously, Diallo, the seed, he's coming in only one win on the clay, but he did have that really good run in Indian Wells, getting out to the third round, losing to Felix in 3 tough sets, but beating Bellucci and Rublev on the way there. I just don't think Gabe Diallo is going to be able to match the clay court confidence of Elmer Moller. So give me Moller to advance here. I'm going to say it's going to be 3 tough sets. Next match is Thomas Machac against Cam Norrie, and Machac getting through a tough 3-setter against Komasada. And doesn't it feel, guys, that Machac in all of these Master Series matches that he always loses the first set and then has to like recalibrate and figure out, what it is he has to do to beat the opponent? But it does feel like he has these slow starts in his matches, and though that does end up costing you, obviously, as you start to get deeper and deeper into a tournament. But Machac able to come out here, and I only saw a little bit of this match in the third set, and it really was. It looked to me like a Machac domination with that forehand, with the aggression. He was controlling the middle, and he was moving Komasana left and right. Komasana with no answers there, playing the defense, being patient like we talked about, but just had no answers to the power that Machac was throwing at him. So Machac advances 3-6, 7-6, 6-3. And now he takes on Cam Norrie. Head-to-head is 2-0 for Norrie. Norrie getting his first win at Wimbledon in 2023, 6-3, 4-6, 6-1, 6-4. That was the first round of Wimbledon. And then last year in 2025, getting a win over Machac in Geneva, 3-6, 6-2, 4-3, retired. That was the second round of Geneva on the clay. Norrie's coming in. He's 3-2 on the clay. Was 14-7 last year, 8-8 the year before that. He lost last week to Rafa Jodar in the quarterfinals of Barcelona, beating Ethan Quinn and Stan Wawrinka to get out to that stage. He did have a tough 3-setter against Alex de Minaur, and honestly, Cam had some chances in that match really to make it a straight set match. He should have won that first set, but de Minaur wrestled that away from him, and then Norrie able to win that second set. So a lot of opportunities for Norrie. He's not playing too bad on the clay. Machac, on the other hand, coming in at 4-3. Now 4-3 with that win over Komasana. Had a couple of wins in Barcelona, beating Buse and getting a walkover from Carlos Alcaraz, and then losing in straight sets to Rublev. That was a little bit disappointing for me, seeing him lose to to Rublev like that. Just a very straightforward match for Rublev. And Machac did have, obviously, the last couple of games where Rublev's serving for the match or for the set. Machac is trying to kind of get into those games. He just wasn't really able to compete at the same consistent level as Rublev there. Machac did have, most notably, that tough three-setter against Sinner where he was leading in that second set, and then Sinner able to break back, and Machac able to win it in a tiebreak, but then losing in the third set 6-3. Very tough match there for Sinner. We know Machac has that power where he can really bully anybody around. This is a tricky matchup, I think, because honestly, if Machac comes in and he's able to play that aggressive tennis, especially you have the altitude here in Madrid, his balls are going to be flying maybe a little bit faster. I think that could give Norrie some issues, but I just haven't seen consistency really from Machac in any of these clay tournaments just yet. Even in that Sinner match where he was able to take a set, he didn't look great. He was very slow start to start that Sinner match. I'm gonna go with Norrie here to advance. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 3 sets. Something tells me Machac loves taking a set off of some of these guys, and making you think he's gonna come back and potentially make it a match, and then he just gets broken early on in the third set and rolls over. But give me Norrie to advance here in 3 sets. Next match is Tommy Paul against Tirante, and Tirante able to get through Bautista Agut in his first round match, 6-2, 6-4. His defense looked very good today against Bautista Agut. Obviously, Tirante able to produce a little bit of offense, but his ability to absorb some of those bigger hits from Bautista Agut, making him come up with one extra shot, that to me really frustrated Bautista Agut, where he wasn't able to end the point as quickly as he would have liked. And then Tirante able to just dig into some of these points. Even ones that it looked like he had lost the point, he's still sprinting to get the ball back, and really staying in a lot of these points. And that, to me, is what really helped him through this match, because it did feel, in the first few games, there was a little bit of back and forth with these guys, and it really felt like it was going to be a much closer match. But Tirante able to kind of flex that clay court prowess and advance 6-2, 6-4. He's going to take on Tommy Paul. And this is a rematch of the second round of the Australian Open this year, where Tommy Paul was able to win 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. And honestly, guys, I was surprised because I didn't even know that they played in Australia. And honestly, for me, I think it was just I now have a much better vision of Tirante. I just view him as a much stronger tennis player, whereas here I might have looked at him and been like, oh, that's just another guy outside the top 50, 60. That Tommy Paul's just going to roll. But now I'm like, this could be a very tricky match here for Tommy Paul. We know that Tommy Paul, coming off that Houston win where he played, where he was able to beat Hurkacz in the finals. Hurkacz had tons of opportunities in that match, and Paul able to prevail. Tommy Paul sitting at 5-0 right now on the clay. He was 12-4 last year, 10-4 the year before, so he does do pretty well on this surface. Tirante, on the other hand, not too shabby either. 7-3 on the clay this year, 35-22, 26-22 the year before that. And Tirante did play in Houston as well, and he lost a puzzling 6-1, 6-1 semifinal match to Hurkacz, and that was a little bit surprising for us. But at the same time, Tirante coming off that Ben Shelton quarterfinal win, I think we kind of expected maybe there to be a little bit of a hangover in that match against a countryman and friend in Hurkacz. I'm going to take Tommy Paul here, guys. I do like the fact that this isn't his first clay match. I like that he's already played a little bit on the clay in Houston. He's already won a title on the clay. I think if it was his first match, I'd be leaning maybe a little bit more towards Tirante, but I feel like Tommy Paul has that all around game that's gonna bother a guy like Tirante. Tirante likes to sit back and kind of get some errors from you. Also try to produce a little bit of offense. I don't think he's gonna have much success against Tommy Paul here. We know like the movement for Bautista Agut is a little bit more challenged. Paul's gonna be getting everything back. I'm going to take Paul here. I'm going to say it's going to be 2 tough sets. Here's a look at Sinner's 8th of the draw. And, I still really like Sinner to advance here. I would look forward to a Sinner and Tommy Paul matchup, but Tommy Paul's going to have to get through Tirante, who's a little bit of tough clay quarter, and either Norrie or Machac, which would be a tricky matchup as well for him. But we've seen he's been able to grind out some tough wins on the clay so far with that Houston title. But I think Sinner is going to be able to advance out here to a quarterfinal. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. And here's a look at Demonar's 8th of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Kopriva against Rublev. Rublev coming off that tough loss to Fils in the Barcelona final. 6-2, 7-6. Kopriva coming off a nice win, 6-2, 6-0 over Zhang. We picked this one correctly, and honestly, I was surprised at how straightforward it was, especially given the first couple of games seemed like it was going to be kind of a tough-it-out type match for Kopriva, and Zhang just wasn't able to put the ball in the court. His offensive shots were just not landing at all. Kopriva got a lot of confidence. His redirection is so good on the clay. His ability to hit off the middle as well. And his flat shots, I think, started to frustrate Zhang a little bit. Zhang not really being able to get over the top of those shots and kind of start to dictate himself. So really nice win for Kopriva to get through there in straights, barely expending any energy. He comes in, he's 9-7 now on the clay, 25-13 last year, 21-16 the year before. He did have a tough loss in Munich to Kaboli, who we know went on to make the finals, but beating Engel and Darderi on his way to the quarterfinals of Munich was pretty good. A tough loss to Arnaldi in Monte Carlo in the qualifiers of the first round of the qualifiers, and then in Marrakesh a loss to Mueller in straight sets, but beat Medjedovic, who we know made it out to the semis of Barcelona. So Medjedovic is playing pretty good tennis. Not a bad loss there. That was a tough 3-setter for Kopriva. Rublev, on the other hand, we know was able to get out and beat Navoni, beat Sonego, beat Machac, all in straight sets. Then a tough 3-setter against Medjedovic, and loses in straights to Arthur Fils. A little bit disappointing, given the fact that we did feel like he was playing better tennis than what he had shown. Had a chance to serve out that second set, wasn't able to do it. Fils breaks, gets it to a breaker, and is able to win in straight sets. The big question here, guys, is how is Rublev going to play now, only a few days later after this match against Fils? Is he going to be able to bring it against Kopriva? Kopriva, a very solid clay court tennis player. Rublev coming in, he's 5-2 right now on the clay. 8-6 last year, 11-6 the year before, and he did have a head-scratching loss to Zizou Bergs in the second round of Monte Carlo. So we just gotta look out for that. And Rublev's got some of those interesting losses. Made it out to the semifinals of Dubai, then a week later loses in the second round to Diallo at Indian Wells. Right after that, loses in the second round to Tabilo in Indian Wells. Both 3-setters, so he's competing, but he's just not been able to get over the hump here and play consistently for back-to-back tournaments. Kopriva is a good match for Rublev. If he wins this match, I think that'll give him a little bit of confidence, given that Kopriva is a pretty solid clay quarter. Let's take a look at how Rublev's done here in Madrid. He did win in 2024, beating Felix Auger-Aliassime in the finals. Second best result was a quarterfinal in 2022, and last year he lost in the third round to Bublik, who we know made a pretty nice run here on the clay, starting here in Madrid. I think this is going to be a three-setter. I feel like Kopchev is going to be able to ask all the right questions here. Like I think he's really going to push Rublev to the brink here, and we know that the Kopchev style is just not a comfortable style to play against. He hits a very flat ball. He takes the ball early. He can kind of hit some of these inside-out angle flat shots against the opponent. So it's not a very it's not a style that you want to play if this is your first match into the tournament. So I think it's going to take Rublev some time to get used to that, but I'm still going to go with Rublev to advance here over Kopriva. We've talked about Kopriva not being able to really get that signature win. Yeah, he was able to beat Majetovic, but losing to Kaboli, losing to Bublik, beat Darderi, but we know Darderi's kind of taken a step back this year. This would be a very big win for him if he's able to get the dub here. I just don't think he does it, so give me Rublev to advance in 3 sets. Next match is Lajovic against Rinderknech, and Lajovic able to get a good win against Sonego. We talked about how these guys have had a pretty tough head-to-head. Only played a couple of matches in recent years, but have had a very historically tough head-to-head. And Sonego showed us why. I wouldn't say Sonego was at his best today. The first set really felt like Lajovic was dominating most of those points, and then Lajovic with chances to break early. Sonego saves some of those break points, starts to get the momentum going, gets the crowd behind him, and this is a pretty good stepping stone, I think, for Sonego. We weren't expecting him to win this match. I mean, even if he were to push it to 3 sets and lose, I think it would have been great. But we really weren't expecting him to win a match like this just yet. Lajovic coming through the qualifiers here. So he's got a little bit of clay court experience on the Madrid clay under his belt. And Sonego, we know this is his second match back from injury. So I don't think the expectations can be set too high, but what we saw today in the second set was extremely promising. We started to see some of the offense from Sonego, able to hit that forehand, able to come into net, and I think that's got to give him confidence going forward. The previous match that he played was a little bit disappointing, and he looked a little bit slow. He didn't look like he was able to really hit many shots. Was able to beat Martinez in 3 sets, but we know Martinez not playing great tennis, and then lost to Rublev and just didn't look great there. But here in Madrid, I was impressed. I thought he was moving well. I thought he was hitting the ball well. He was finding some offense. And Lajovic able to get through that tiebreak second set, 7-1 in the breaker. And honestly, I think he's got to be feeling pretty fortunate, because if that had gone 3 sets, that could have gotten a little bit messy there for Dusan Lajovic. But he advances 6-3, 7-6 over Sonego. He takes on Rinderknech. This is a 1-0 head-to-head favoring Rinderknech. They met in 2021 on the indoor hard courts, second round in Antwerp. It was a 6-3, 4-6, 6-2 win for Rinderknech. Do we think this history is going to repeat itself on the clay? I believe so. We got Lajovic just coming in. He's 9-9 on the clay, 28-18 last year, 13-11 the year before. That 9-9, those 3 of those wins coming in this Madrid tournament, and the rest coming in qualifiers or challengers. Rinderknech coming off a tough loss to Fonseca, and we were teasing at the beginning of this, it does look like they're on a collision course for another matchup here. Rinderknech losing in 3 sets to Fonseca in Monte Carlo, and then in straight sets in Munich. What is he going to be able to do here? Rinderknech coming in, he's 2-2 on the clay, 9-10 last year, 6-7 the year before. Hasn't had a winning season on the clay since 2023. I think he's due to get a win here against Lajovic. I think that's a pretty nice matchup for Rinderknech. I always like the way he plays with that aggressive serve, with the ability to serve and volley. He's going to rush Lajovic and challenge that Lajovic movement on the clay. So I got to pick Rinderknech here. I have a weird feeling that this is going to be kind of a tricky match for him. We know Lajovic. He's been around for almost over 16 years now, I believe, on the tour. So he's definitely played some very quality matches. And if we get the A game from Dusan Lajovic, this could definitely be a match. But for me right now, I just like the way that Rinderknech plays. I think running into Fonseca, who's been playing lights out clay court tennis, has been a tough draw for him. And he's probably going to meet him up in the round of 16 here. But for now, give me Rinderknech to advance in 2 tough sets. Next match is Fonseca taking on Cilic. Cilic able to get through a tough 3-setter against Dzumhur. And this was a very good-looking match from Marin Cilic. Able to take advantage of the Berg's errors at the end of the day. But Dzumhur's coming out, gets a good break, able to hold on to that break and win the set. Using his offense, challenging the movement of Marin Cilic, but the consistency let him down towards the end. Cilic just a little too strong. I really liked what I saw from him. He was able to move a little bit better on the clay as the match went on. He started to get his confidence to find that forehand and work the serve +1 and the return +1. So we got to give Cilic a lot of credit here getting through that match. Bergs has had some solid wins on the clay this year, most notably beating Rublev. So this was a good win for Marin Cilic to get through. He gets through 4-6, 6-3, 6-4, and he takes on Fonseca. These guys have not met before. Cilic coming in, he's 2-2 right now on the clay with that win over Bergs and Shevchenko. And then a loss to Altmaier last week in Munich, and a loss to Felix Auger-Aliassime in Monte Carlo. Fonseca, on the other hand, has been having a pretty good clay season. He is 6-4 right now, but 5-2 in his last 2 tournaments on the clay. In Monte Carlo, he came in, beat Diallo, beat Rinderknech, beat Berrettini, and lost a tough 3-setter to Zverev. And in Munich, he was able to beat Tabilo and Rinderknech and lost a tough 3-setter to Ben Shelton. Ben Shelton going on to win the tournament. Fonseca was 8-5 last year, 14-11 the year before. It's really hard for me to pick against Fonseca here, guys, and I don't know if I really can. I just think that Fonseca's much more consistent at producing offense than Bergs is, and I think Fonseca's going to be able to challenge the movement of Marin Cilic on the clay. And that was something when Bergs was starting to hit his shots consistently aggressive. It gave Cilic a lot of issues. So I'm going to make this a quick one. I'm going to take Fonseca here to advance. I think he's going to win in straight sets over Cilic. And our final match is going to be a great one. We have Jodar taking on Minaur. Jodar able to get through a tough match against De Jong. And honestly, for about almost a full 2 sets, Jodar was just not playing good tennis. It felt like we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago, but then he went on this run, winning Machac, getting to the semis of Barcelona. But the one thing that I talked about with Jodar was consistency in results. Obviously, if you want to make it to the top, you got to be there deep in these tournaments, week in and week out. And we just hadn't seen that yet from Jodar. And we were able to see it in back-to-back tournaments, not necessarily in back-to-back weeks, but back-to-back tournaments from Jodar, making it to the final, winning Marrakesh over Trungelliti, and then make it to the semifinals, losing a tough one to Arthur Feast, who went on to win that Barcelona championship. And in all honesty, if Jodar was able to beat Feast there, he was probably going to beat Rublev in the finals too. So good stuff from Jodar. He's sitting at 9-1 right now on the clay, 3-1 last year, 6-4 the year before. So he's playing very solid clay court tennis. Today, De Jong just came in and he was all over Jodar. Absolutely no fear of Jodar. The one thing that stood out to me the most was the way that De Jong returned Jodar's serve for about a set and a half. The second serve he took so early and was able to hit so aggressively that by the time Jodar's foot is coming down from the serve, the ball already felt like it was past him or on top of him. And De Jong just doing a great job, taking a lot of time away from Jodar, forcing him to hit some very tricky shots. But then we had this is like a growing up moment, you know. It's so fun to watch these players. We have Rafa Jodar, who's he is 19 years old right now, but just seeing him figure out a way to win without playing his best tennis. And guys, we both know the best players, you know, your Sinners, your Alcarazes, your Nadals and Federers, they find ways to win even when they're not playing their best tennis. And that's exactly what I felt like Jodar was able to do today. He's able to force a third set, winning the second set 7-5, and then breaks De Jong at the end. No breaks all the way through that set until De Jong had to serve to stay in that match, and he gets broken for Jodar to win 6-4. The one game that really stood out to me was that second set 4-all game where De Jong had a chance to break. I think he had a couple of chances to break the Jodar serve and serve for the match, and Jodar just came up with some very offensive but high percentage plays, like plays that you know that his tried and true plays that he trusts, that he knows will work on the clay, on the hard court, no matter what. He's got an 85-90% chance of winning that point, and you love to see that stuff. And he really got himself amped up going into the tail end of that second set. But good on Jodar. He advances 2-6, 7-5, 6-4. He will take on Alex de Minaur. No head-to-head for these guys here. De Minaur coming in at 3-2 on the clay. Had a tough loss in Barcelona to Medjedovic. And while we didn't call that match, we did say that Medjedovic could take the racket out of de Minaur's hands. And that was a little bit of a scary part there for us. How was de Minaur going to be able to handle that? And he wasn't able to. De Minaur was 10-5 last year on the clay, 10-5 the year before as well. Jodar, as we talked about, 9-1 right now on the clay, coming out from that win over De Jong and making the semifinals of Barcelona, losing to Arthur Feast, the champion, and winning Marrakesh over Trungelliti. De Minaur's two losses, one to Medjedovic, as we had just spoken about, and then one to Vacherot in 3 sets in Monte Carlo, and that was a tough fought match in the quarterfinals. Do we think that de Minaur can make a run here? I think this is a very tough matchup for Alex de Minaur. I think I mentioned already, no head-to-head from these guys. I think it helps for Jodar to have played that match, to have gotten through that match. Assuming his body is going to be good enough to play full percentage in this match, I have to take him here. He did play 2.5 hours, and maybe there's a little bit of a hangover from that semifinal in Barcelona. We saw his legs really give out towards the end. But I think this is a very good matchup for Jodar. And I think it's good that he played a bad match. You know, if he had beaten De Jong 6-1, 6-2, I think maybe I would have been a little bit more hesitant to pick him here. But now that we kind of got like that bad match out of the way, the nerves are out of the way, he's got his feet wet, he knows what it feels like walking out on that stadium court. I gotta go with Jodar again here to take out de Minaur. I think it's gonna be a three-setter. I think de Minaur's obviously, a very top-notch player. He's gonna have something to say about it. But I'm gonna go with Jodar, guys. Give me Jodar to advance in 3 sets. Here's a look at de Minaur's 8th of the draw, and this is going to be a really tricky one. I do like Fonseca to advance. I think even if, whether it's Jodar or de Minaur, I think Fonseca is going to be able to beat either of those players. I do think that if it's Jodar, I feel like he's going to be on his last leg. That de Minaur match is not going to be a straightforward match, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a tough, grinded-out match for Jodar. We did see his legs give out in Barcelona. That was only like 5 or 6 days ago. How are they going to do now? We just played 2.5 hours on court. He's probably going to have to go out and play another 2.5 hours to beat Alex de Minaur, and then he's got to face Fonseca. I mean, that's the beauty of these Master Series. You get one win, and then you have the opportunity to play someone that's even better. I do like Fonseca to advance. I'm curious what we're going to get from Rublev out here. Obviously, he was playing great tennis in Barcelona. I think he's going to be a little bit miffed about losing that match, having the ability to serve out that second set and not being able to. I do kind of have a feeling that Rinderknech is going to beat Rublev here, but I'm going to go with Fonseca to advance to the quarterfinals out of this part of the draw. Here's a look at Shelton's 8th of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Shelton against Prizmic. And guys, how about Prizmic against Berrettini? 6-3, 6-4. I mean, we can even call that a routining of Berrettini. He did not let Matteo Berrettini get comfortable at all. He was just rocketing his shots to the Berrettini backhand. When Berrettini had chances to hit his forehand, he was never on balance. He was never able to hit a clean shot. It was just impressive stuff from Prizmic. And this is a guy that trusts himself here on the clay. He's 13-4 this year. He really trusts what he can do on the clay. He knows what he can do is going to bother a lot of the players, including the big hitters like Berrettini. We did have Berrettini picked, and I told you guys before I could not be happier if Prizmic won, and I'm so happy that he was able to win. This was a tricky draw for him coming out of the qualifiers. I was hoping that maybe he would get a little bit of an easier draw, but being able to take out Berrettini here is a great win and accomplishment for him, especially doing it in straight sets on the clay. Prizmic advances 6-3, 6-4 over Matteo Berrettini. He takes on Ben Shelton. No head-to-head for these guys here. We know that Shelton is coming off a win in Munich over Kaboli, beating Nava, Blockx, Fonseca, Molchan, and Kaboli to win the title. He played a couple of really solid clay quarters. We know Alexander Blockx is playing extremely good clay court tennis. Even Emilio Nava is a solid clay quarter. And then being able to face Fonseca as well, and beating him in 3 sets. We know how good Fonseca has been on the clay, and Molchan, a tough lefty. Shelton able to take care of him as well. Ben Shelton is 6-1 right now on the clay. His one loss coming in Houston to Tirante. This, I feel like, is going to be a much trickier match than people are thinking it may be. We got to understand, Prizmic is at 6 hours and 40 minutes now on court. So that's going to play a factor at some point on his body. Winning 2 tough matches in the qualifiers and beating Matteo Berrettini. Shelton is coming in from that Munich win, and let's take a look. We didn't see him, I don't think, after Dallas. We didn't see him until Indian Wells, so it's really hard to say in back-to-back tournaments. This is going to be the first time we really see him in back-to-back weeks competing, and we'll see it more this year from Shelton. We did see him compete back-to-back weeks at Indian Wells and Miami, But I wouldn't really count that because there's about like 6 or 7 days in between those matches. I think this is going to be a 3-setter. I think there's going to be a breaker in it as well. I gotta pick Shelton here, guys. I like Prizmic a lot. I think he's playing good clay court tennis, but this is a massive step up for him. Yes, he's had wins over Berrettini, Bellucci, Basilashvili, all of these coming on the clay, but they are not Ben Shelton. I think I think this is going to be a little bit messy though for Ben. Just coming off, that Munich win, having maybe a little bit of that hangover after getting that big dub. So I would watch out for that. We know Prizmic is going to come in. He's going to be hungry. I think we're going to see at least one breaker. And I think Prizmic is going to take a set. So give me Shelton to advance here in 3 sets. Next match, we have Ofner taking on Etcheverry, and Ofner able to get through Basilashvili. A little bit of a back and forth first set, and then Ofner kind of like giving away some opportunities. He was up 5-1 in that breaker. It got back as close as 6-5. So very tough from Ofner, but he was able to come up with the shots when he needed it to get the win over Basilashvili, 7-6, 7-6. He now takes on Etcheverry here. Ofner's 8-4 right now on the clay, and we do remember he had a very close match in the first round against Alex de Minaur in Barcelona, and I think that's very indicative to the way this guy plays. He likes his he likes the serve. He likes the serve +1, and he can step in and really rope shots, and that's something that we gotta look out for against a guy like Etcheverry, who's gonna give you some softer balls as well for you to kind of hit. I'm very interested to see how this matchup's gonna go. Now, head to head, it is 1-0 for Ofner, which doesn't surprise me. They met on the clay in 2023 in Bastad, and Ofner was able to win 4-6, 6-1, 7-5 in the first round. And again, I'm not really surprised because Ofner poses a big threat to Etcheverry just for the fact that he's able to take a lot of shots early and redirect them aggressively. And that's going to put Etcheverry a little bit more on edge. If Ofner's game is clicking, I think that's going to spell a lot of problems for Etcheverry. Etcheverry's coming in. He's 13-4 on the clay, 9-14 last year, 19-13 the year before, but 13-4 is pretty good. He had a very disappointing loss to Borges, Nuno Borges, where towards the end of that second set, it kind of felt like Etcheverry was starting to turn things around. But Borges able to get it to a breaker and survive in the breaker. He did finish on a underhand serve, which was a pretty effective strategy considering that Etcheverry returns so far back. Etcheverry did have a nice win over Draper, even though it was a retirement. Etcheverry was able to stay out there and just kind of wear Draper down. And the one match that really caught my eye for Etcheverry, he was, I think it was 12-2. Going into this match against Carlos Alcaraz, and I really wanted to see Etcheverry have some success against Carlos. When he lost the first set 6-1, it was like 35 minutes, 40 minutes. He lost that set so fast. It really didn't look like he could do anything against Carlos. But then Carlos kind of throws in a break, and Etcheverry gets a little bit of confidence. And then we see Etcheverry winning that second set and really pushing Carlos in the third. A lot of good rallies there, and that really caught my eye that, this guy's a very solid clay quarter and definitely a guy that needs to be reckoned with here. Ofner, on the other hand, as we spoke about, 8-4 on the clay, 16-10 last year, 8-13 the year before. 37 and 13 in 2023, 21 and 12 in 2022. So he's not a stranger to this surface. You watch his game, you kind of see the way he hits. You would think, oh, this guy likes it a little bit more on the hard court, but that's not true. The majority of his matches have been played on the clay, so definitely has a little bit of a comfort on this surface. This is going to be a really tricky one, and I can see this to me as a 50-50 here. I could see this one going either way, but for me, I gotta go with Etcheverry. I gotta trust the guy. 13 and 4. He won the Rio Open. That's a 500 level tournament on clay. I think he's going to be able to find a way to get out of this match, but wouldn't be surprised if Ofner won, but give me Etcheverry to advance in 3 sets. Next match is Feast against Buse, and Buse able to get through Mannarino today. That was a pretty straightforward match. I was a little bit surprised at how big of a favorite Buse was. I think he was like minus 400 or 500, something like that. And yes, I get it. Mannarino's not great on the clay. We did say we thought it was going to be Buse in straights, but still to see him that big of a favorite, only not really playing any impressive clay court tennis. He's 6-6 on the clay, and he's riding a 3-match losing streak. So it was a little bit surprising to see him that big of a favorite. I know, and obviously hindsight's 2020. Yeah, he ends up winning 6-4, 6-2. But still, I was surprised that they kind of hedged him into that big of a favorite spot. Buse 6-6 on the clay this year, 42 and 13 last year, 44 and 24 the year before. We know he loves the dirt. He loves to play on the surface. However, this is his first year kind of going up into the ATP Tour level. Mostly he's been on challengers, ITFs. And now we see him start his record goes from 42 and 19 last year. Now we're starting to see it level out a little bit as he's playing much tougher competition. And he's got one of the best guys playing on the clay right now in Arthur Feast. Feast coming in, he's 5-0 right now on the clay, winning Barcelona, beating Terence Ottman, Nakashima, Musetti, Jodar, and Rublev. That is a solid 5 guys to beat to win a tournament, and especially against Musetti in straight sets, Jodar in 3, Rublev in straights. Impressive stuff. Feast got a little bit nervous towards the end of that final. That is rightfully so. We expect most of these players to be a little bit nervous, I think, and Feast hasn't won a tournament in a while, so for him to kind of get there, have that opportunity, we saw him start to miss the forehand wide, and there are a lot of errors coming off the forehand side, but I did like that he continued to swing out. He continued to just kind of hit through those nerves, and I really liked to see that, able to break Rublev back to send it to a breaker. Rublev goes up 2-0 in the breaker, and Feast reels off 7 straight points to win the match and the championship. Impressive stuff from Arthur Feast. Now he's got Buse, and again, we've talked about this a ton with some of the other guys. Are we going to have a hangover from Barcelona? Feast's first title in a while. Are we going to see a Feast that comes out and maybe is a little bit tired here? Or are we going to see a Feast that comes out with oozing with confidence and ready to go? I like the latter. I think Feast being able to get that win, beating the likes of Musetti and Jodar and Rublev to get there, I think this is going to give him a ton of confidence. I don't think, even from what I saw today, that first set with Buse and Mannarino was so close. And I remember watching it being like, how could they favor him by this much? This guy doesn't even... It looked like we were splitting hairs in the first set. Obviously you guys know I'm a big Buse fan. I want the best for him. But just a lot of errors, not clean tennis. Mannarino's not gonna let you play your best tennis against him. But still to be like Buse was favored by this much, and like man, I thought Mannarino was gonna win that set. I was like, man, if he wins a set, this would be insane for Buse to be favored like that. But now Buse goes up against Feast, and Buse does have a big game. He's got the forehand, he's got the groundies, he moves very smoothly on the clay. I'm curious to see what we're gonna get here from him. This is a big time step up. I mean, you look at some of these matches, this might be the biggest step up that Buse's had in his career. Let's just look at this year here. A loss to Mute, loss to Goffin, loss to Carabelli, loss to Dzumhur, loss to Hijikata, loss to Tirante, loss to Tabilo, loss to Baez. So no one really of the caliber of Feast. Like, this is going to be the first time that Buse is going to see a forehand hit at like Mach 50. So I don't know. If Feast is on, even if Feast brings his B game, I think this is going to be Feast in straights. So I'm not gonna dwell on it any further. You guys know I'm a big Buse fan. If Buse can find a way to kind of get a win here, I would be thrilled. But I gotta go with the guy that's oozing with confidence right now. Give me Feast. He's gonna advance to the round of 32 in straight sets. Next match, we have Emilio Nava taking on Valentin Vacherot. Nava able to get through Jensen Brooksby today, 6-3, 7-5. And this match was a little bit back and forth. Brooksby able to get a break, I believe, early on in the first set. And it did feel like it was a little like Brooksby was taking the return, the Nava second serve early. He was able to put a lot of pressure on Emilio Nava's serve. And we got to credit to Nava. He was able to throw in a little bit more variety to keep Brooksby on edge, and then was also starting to dominate a lot of the rallies. Got a few errors from Brooksby at crucial moments to win the first set. Second set was a lot of back and forth, and Brooksby just not able to hang on under the pressure, getting broken for the 7-5 Nava second set win. He now plays Vacherot, and of course we remember Vacherot from Monte Carlo. He's 4-1 right now on the clay, 24-12 last year, 15-9 the year before, 49-25 in 2023. And we talked about Vacherot in Monte Carlo. Was that success that he had on the challenger level on the clay, was that going to carry over to the ATP Tour level? And I was 50-50 on that happening. And guess what? It did. Vacherot able to beat Juan Manuel Cerundolo in 3 sets. That was a match. Cerundolo, I believe, was up a break in that second set. And then Vacherot just able to start hitting out on his forehand, started to loosen up a little bit, and able to take a hold of that second set and win 6-2, 6-1. I mean, that was pretty impressive stuff from Vacherot there to just get through the first round. Then he took on Musetti and won in straights. Then he beat Hurkacz in 3, Minaur in 3, and lost a tough one to Carlos Alcaraz, 6-4, 6-4 in straight sets. I think Vacherot is going to continue this confidence here. Obviously, we know Emilio Nava, a big fan of the clay, 9-7 right now on the clay, 45-19 last year, 8-9 the year before, okay. But 45-19 last year, this guy's been grinding out there on the clay. He moves so well on the clay. It's really tough to look past a guy like Emilio Nava. This could be an all-out war here, given the Nava serve and the ability for Emilio Nava to hit that forehand very big. He's going to look to dictate against Vacherot. But we've seen some good things for Vacherot. He has time to kind of set up his shots a little bit better here on the clay. He doesn't feel rushed as much. Will the high altitude affect either of these guys? It's going to make the ball a little bit faster, but it also makes the air a little bit thinner, So seeing some of these guys, we remember Nava was kind of a little bit under the weather with that loss to Shelton in Munich, so I don't know if there's something carrying over there. But looking at this matchup, guys, it's really tough for me not to pick Vacherot. This is going to be a tough one, though, I feel. A lot of these second-round matchups are really, really tough for me to pick here, but I'm going to pick Vacherot to advance. I'm going to say it's going to be 3 sets. I think Nava gets a set. So give me Vacherot in 3. Here's a look at Shelton's 8th of the draw, and this is a stacked 8th of the draw. We have 3 guys that have already won 500 level tournaments on the clay. Etcheverry winning Rio, Shelton winning Munich, Thies winning Barcelona, and then Vacherot able to make a semifinal of Monte Carlo. So everybody's been very successful here on the clay. Do I see any of these guys getting upset? It really depends on what we're gonna get from Shelton and Thies coming off those 2 wins. It wouldn't surprise me if one guy came out a little bit sluggish, and Prizmic can take advantage of that for sure. I just think both these guys deal with so much confidence, and winning that tournament is only going to build that confidence for them. So I think both of them are not going to come out slow. I think they're going to come out ready to go here and motivated to maybe make a deep run. My pick to get out into the quarterfinals here, it's going to be really tricky, but I'm going to go with Arthur Thies. If he's able to have the physicality to go past a couple of rounds here, I think he's going to be able to make it out to the quarters. Would be a tough road. Obviously, Buse is not that tough of a customer. Buse hasn't had a signature win yet, but still against Arthur Thies, that can still be a tricky match there. Buse pretty solid on the clay. And then Vacherot, of course, we know, has been amazing on the clay so far this year. That'll be a tough test for him. And then if he wins that, he plays either Etcheverry or Shelton. That's also another, Etcheverry, you're going to have to grind out a very tough, long match against him. Or Shelton, you're going to have to find a way to neutralize that massive serve that he has. So very interesting matchups here, guys. I can't wait to see how this draw pans out. But this is probably my favorite 8th of the draw here to talk about. Just tons of good matchups here. But let's move on to the next part of the draw. And here's a look at Musetti's 8th of the draw. And first match we're going to talk about is Lehecka against Tabilo. And Tabilo able to take out Royer today. And Royer with not really many answers for the Tabilo clay court game. I loved what I saw from Alejandro Tabilo today. He came out with a lot of confidence. We saw him after he's getting to every ball. No matter what, he was letting Royer know, you're going to have to hit something very special in order to get it past me, or construct a point where you're opening the court up. And that's even more difficult against a guy like Tabilo. And then we saw him, at the end of these games, he's jogging over to the bench. He's got tons of energy. I think that's awesome stuff to see, especially considering he's coming off that tough loss to Fonseca, 7-6, 6-3 in Munich. And I had expected it to maybe be a 3-setter there, just given that Tabilo's been playing some solid clay court tennis. But Fonseca just a little bit too much of a challenge for him. But today, Tabilo advances over Royer 6-2, 6-4. And he has his rematch with Lehecka. Lehecka able to beat Tabilo in Monte Carlo in 3 sets. I believe they do have 3 meetings as well. One was in 2019, one was in 2022. Both won by Lehecka on clay. And then the previous meeting a couple weeks ago was a 4-6, 7-6, 6-3 win for Lehecka. And Tabilo had chances in that match. And I have to favor the guy that had the chances to win that match. The guy that's been thinking about, God, I can't wait till I get to play him again. I'm not going to let those chances slip away. Lehecka's coming in. He's 2-1 on the clay. Was 5-5 last year. 4-1 the year before. His record is only reflective of the Monte Carlo results. He has not played any other clay court tournaments was able to beat Emilio Nava and Tabilo, losing to Bublik in straights. Tabilo, on the other hand, is 15-6 on the clay, 6-7 last year, 15-9 the year before. He's got a lot of confidence coming in here on the clay, able to make it out to the second round, losing in Monte Carlo, but we had a quarterfinal at the Chile Open, and also making it out to the finals, losing to Etcheverry in Rio. So I do really think this is going to be a tough match for Lehecka to win, and I gotta go with Tabilo here. And I honestly think, guys, like, I'm gonna pick him in straight sets. I really feel like that match in Monte Carlo, Tabilo should have had that in straights. He was able to take the first set, and then had a couple of chances to get the win there. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tabilo here to advance. I'm gonna say it's gonna be him in straights over Lehecka. Next match is Michelsen taking on Struff, and how good did Struff look today, winning 7-6, 6-0 against Mueller. Mueller's playing pretty good clay court tennis, but Struff just taking the racket out of his hands, was very dominant on the ground, dominant with the serve, able to get a straight set win over Mueller to advance to play Michelsen. And guys, don't forget, Struff had a nice run here in 2023, making it all the way out to the finals and losing to, I believe it was Alcaraz. So he does have some strong history here in Madrid. Struff is coming in. He's 1-1 on the clay. Was 5-8 last year and 15-5 the year before that. Michelsen, on the other hand, 1-2 on the clay, 6-5 last year, 4-9 the year before that. Michelsen's one win on the clay was against Coleman Wong, who is historically not a great clay quarter, so I'm not sure how much weight we can put into that. He had a head-scratching loss to Alexei Popyrin, 6-1 in the third set, and then a tough straight-set loss to Rinderknech, who we thought would be able to outmatch Michelsen on this surface. Struff, on the other hand, has the win over Moller, 7-6, 6-0, and then lost to Basilashvili in the qualifiers in straight sets. So that was Monte Carlo qualifiers. No head-to-head for these guys, and I did mention before when I was picking the Mueller and Struff picks that I kind of like to pick this person to advance over Michelsen. I do not like what I've seen so far from Michelsen on the clay. He's really got to prove it to me for me to start having confidence picking him even in the second round of a Master Series. So I'm going to go with Struff to advance. I think it's probably going to be straight sets. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 3, but I'm going to go Struff to advance in 3. Next match, we have Griekspoor against Dzumhur. And guys, we are in a must-win situation for Griekspoor. He's got to get going here. I get it. I know he's been back from an injury, but we just have not seen the same Griekspoor since making the Dubai finals. He has not won a match since. Losing to Van Asche in Marrakesh, losing to Monfils in Monte Carlo, and losing to Shapovalov in Munich. Griekspoor sitting at 0-3 right now on the clay, was 13-8 last year, 8-8 the year before. Dzumhur, on the other hand, 5-6 right now on the clay, 21-16 last year, 28-7 the year before. He does have a little bit more comfort on this surface. Dzumhur able to get through a tough match against Bellucci, and honestly, guys, that match really just showed you how confident Dzumhur is on the clay. I thought that was what made the difference there, was his ability to trust his shots and trust what he was going to hit, put Bellucci on his back foot. Dzumhur just allowing Bellucci not really to do anything there. Able to advance 6-2, 6-4 over Bellucci. And this Griekspoor matchup, no head-to-head here for these guys. But this is a must-win situation for Griekspoor. I think he's going to come out. I think he's going to give everything he can. But can I pick him right now to advance? No, I cannot. I feel like I've just been burned, obviously 3 straight times, picking him to advance over Van Asche, then picking him to advance over Monfils, and picking him to advance over Chapo. I I just haven't found any success here with Griekspoor. I'm not gonna believe it until I can see him close out a tough 3-set match. That's probably gonna be this one against Dzumhur. Um, for me, I gotta go with Dzumhur. I know he's a big time grinder, but I think he's gonna look for the errors from Griekspoor, and that wouldn't surprise me if we saw a lot of them. Give me Dzumhur to advance in 3 sets. Next match is Hurkacz taking on Musetti. Hurkacz able to get through Feria 6-3, 6-3 with relative ease there. So very nice match. I wasn't able to get eyes on that match, unfortunately, so not really much I can say there. But a straight set win for Hurkacz is very good going into the later rounds of this tournament. He now takes on Musetti. Their head-to-head is 2-2 against each other. Hurkacz winning the most recent matchup at Wimbledon in 2023. Hurkacz won 7-6, 6-4, 6-4 in the third round. They did play once on the clay. Musetti was able to win that by retirement, 6-4, 2-0, retired. And the other 2 matches, one's on indoor hard, one's on grass. I'm not too concerned with those. And they were back in 2022, 2021, so not sure how much we can weigh in on those. Musetti's coming in. He's 2-2 on the clay, 19-4 last year, 18-10 the year before. We remember the year that he had last year, making it out to the semis of Roland Garros. Just impressive stuff from Musetti. He lost in straight sets in Barcelona to Arthur Fils, and this was a little bit of a disappointment. Obviously, we thought he was going to be able to push Fils a little bit more, but I will say that was probably one of the better matches I've seen Musetti play since being back from an injury. So I think he's going to take a little bit of confidence from that match. He did lose in 2 tough sets to Vacherot, who was able to make it out to the semifinals of Monte Carlo. So not bad losses here from Musetti on the clay just yet. And I think he's going to be able to take care of a guy like Hurkacz. Let's take a look at Hurkacz here. Coming in 3-1 on the clay, 7-4 last year, 14-4 the year before. Getting that nice win over Feria in Madrid. And he also lost to Vacherot, but this was a 3-setter, a tricky 3-setter there for Hurkacz. And honestly, I guess that doesn't surprise me, given the fact that that Hurkacz has that serve, can return very well. It doesn't surprise me that he went through a tough match against Vacherot. I gotta pick Musetti here, guys. I think we're again, yes, Barcelona for me. Lando Luthe, that was a must-win situation for Musetti. Mute, again, a must-win situation for Musetti. He plays Fils, and I thought he played very well there. But now we're back to some must-win situations. And if Dzumhur, look at this draw. If this draw holds to what I'm saying it's going to be, Musetti better make it out of this draw into the quarters. That's got to be a must for him. If he's got to play Dzumhur and then either Struff or Tabilo, he should be able to get out here and advance to, at the very least, the quarterfinals. But for now, give me Musetti to advance here in straight sets over Hurkacz. And here's a look at Musetti's 8th of the draw with our round of 32 picks. And again, guys, to reiterate, this is a big-time opportunity for Musetti. This is what the draw is going to look like. A chance to get through Dzumhur and then Tabilo and Struff to get out to the quarters. He could get through, if he's able to get through Hurkacz, Dzumhur, and Tabilo Struff with minimal sets dropped and minimal time spent on court and be fresh in those quarterfinals. I like his chances to, at the very least, get out to a semifinal and maybe push Sinner. That would be a big-time confidence boost for Musetti if he's able to do something like that. But let me know what you guys think. Oh, one more thing. Christian Garin and Blockx. So Van de Zandschulp pulled out. I'm not sure what the injury was there for Bodek Van de Zandschulp, but we had broken down him playing Alexander Blockx, and now Blockx is going to be facing Christian Garin, which is a little bit of a different matchup for him. Obviously, Bode van der Danschop coming in, he's able to hit that offensive style coming into net. He's got that all-around game. But for Garin a little bit more of a clay court grinder type, and he did play Blockx in 2025, beating him 7-6, 6-1 on indoor hard court. So this could be a trickier match for Blockx, and I kind of like Blockx against a guy that's able to kind of put himself in trouble with unforced errors. Bode tends to do that. Garin, in my opinion, doesn't. However, we did see Cristian Garin with a nice match against Zverev, but wasn't able to close that match out. Lost 4-6, 6-4, 7-5, was up a double break in the third set. That is very concerning, if you're picking a guy to come through on that. So just be aware that we do have a new matchup there. I'm still sticking with Blockx, but I think it just went to me from like a straightforward match to a much trickier match now for Alexander Blockx. So we'll see how he does there. Garin obviously loves the clay. He was 39-13 last year. So we'll see how he does there. But let me know what you guys think about these draws. Post your picks in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Here's a look at our first round records for the first day. 12-4 to start the tournament. This is pretty solid stuff here, guys, especially since we called a few upsets as well. So hopefully we can keep it rolling as we play the next set of first round matches tomorrow. We'll see how we do. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We'll have a video out every single night recapping all the matches that happened that day in Madrid. And we will also preview some of our picks. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.